Hey guys, this is Tully and welcome to Let's Build a JRPG Part 8. I believe we're on Part 8 now. It's been enough parts that I have to struggle to remember where we're actually at in terms of numbers. Alright, fantastic opening. I'm doing great now. So where did we leave off last time? So last time we left off, we were doing the setup of the states. So we had kind of gotten the UI state set up. Looks like chat is not operational. Let's fix that. Hey Rob, welcome to the stream. We have it now set up where there is a UI ability state. Once the progress bars get to the end, the ability menu comes up. We can click a button. We can then target an enemy or hit cancel in order to go back to a previous state. Once we do target an enemy, that ability gets pushed onto an ability manager, which is here the ability sequence manager. And this thing basically takes a list of ability sequences. So if we open this up in debug mode, we can see that after hitting black magic attack on that ghost, I believe, we have set that there's a specific ability, which right now they're all hashed numbers, not strings, so it's not super user friendly to read, but it's super efficient for code. But basically this is saying, if we could, like if this was more readable, it would say this is going to cast whichever black magic attack I picked, I don't even remember, but fire or something from whichever character activated, I think the barbarian, and then targeting this enemy, which I believe was the ghost. So regardless, we now have it set up so that when we perform an ability, target an enemy, that ability sequence gets added to an ability sequence list. Today, we need to set it up so that there's an ability state manager, which actually takes that data in here if there's anything in this list and tries to play the ability, and then removes it from the list when it's done, and then it'll try and take the next one at the front of the list, basically moving through the abilities, playing each one in order as they're queued up. So that being said, where do we start? Let's switch to gotta go fast mode. We have an ability state manager. Before the stream started, I did get a little ahead of us, and I did set up a couple of scripts just because it was mostly just duplicating script functionality. I did realize that inside of the UI state machine, which is not here, but in this one, we added this idea of updating our current state. This functionality really should be inside of the state machine now, so that every state machine has the update function to update its states. It's a mono behavior, so this update will get called regardless. Okay, so now we don't have to copy that update functionality into our ability state, which right now doesn't hold many references. It just kind of hangs out by itself. We set up the idea of an ability state off camera just now, which is just basically the basic version of one. Again, pretty empty. It just gets its owner. And then we have the init ability state, initializes and then moves on to the wait for ability state, which is a fantastic name. And then the wait for ability state doesn't really do much right now. So we want to set this thing up to call to the sequence manager, ability sequence manager. And this thing here, we need to have some sort of function that tells us whether or not there is a ability ready to go, which was this. We set this up last time. Get first and remove. I don't know if this should be done at the same time. Okay, so this is going to return to us an ability sequence. And we need to check and see if this is not null. I don't remember what this function does. Yeah, if the account is equal to 0, we return null. So null is the default state. So if this does not equal null, then we can move on with this ability sequence. I also feel like we found the first piece of data this thing probably needs to hold on to. So this probably needs a... How did we set up the UI state manager? Were these all public values? They were. Okay. So this thing is going to need a public ability sequence m underscore current ability sequence. I guess we'll keep the naming conventions. And then the ability state needs to do something similar to this. So for the ability state, it grabs its owner, and then it also needs to have the ability for each of the states to access that ability state ability sequence. So many names. All right, and this will be the ability sequence. Oh, when I was writing this, I didn't set this up properly. This should be an ability state manager, not a UI state manager. Yay, copy and paste bugs, finding them early. Okay. All right. Now, each ability state can access the current ability state, and we want the wait for to set temp. By rights, we could just simply do this instead. It's complaining because I didn't set up a setter. Okay. So we get the ability state, but we can also set our state manager's ability state like so. Good, excellent. Now that should stop complaining in here, right? So we set the current ability state to get and remove. If it's not equal to null, then we will move on to the next state in our list. The question is, which is the next state? I think, if I remember correctly, we bring up some reference material. Okay, YouTube. Skippy. Combat. Is there a part where we are in combat? Here. Okay, so when we perform an ability, going around circles, gonna get into combat. Oh no, this isn't the part where we're going around circles. Okay, character activates. We say fight on an enemy. Oh, interesting. I had not noticed that before. Incorrect input blitz. Auto crossbow fires auto crossbow. Terror performs an attack. Interesting. When characters attack, there is no top panel for this. But in every other situation where we use an actual ability, it does show the top panel. Neato. Alright, so I think that's the next state. I think in most situations, okay, bring this back for a second. When we hit play here, the character shows the state at the very top, then the character moves forward, the effect fires, the after the effect, damage appears, and then we move on to the next one. Again, we show the top title. After the title is done, the character performs a move up and it activates a series of attack sequences, essentially, or attack movements, performs the hit, damage flies off, and then if a character or an enemy is dead, then they will die. But that's not really super important right now. I think it's more just the order of those events. So I'm going to write those down somewhere. So when we wrote the state machine before, it was pretty rudimentary. I think we missed a few steps. So I think the next state we need is... Okay, I don't want the text box, I want the actual box. So technically we need to go to, from waiting for ability, we actually need to go to display ability name. Then from here, we need to go into play player sequence animation, then trigger ability effects, damage, and statuses, and then continue. I think that's really the only piece we were missing. I think this is actually, for the most part, fine. I think I just want to add in this state. Yeah, you know what? That's really it. I'm a perfectionist. All right, there. So next we need to go to display ability name, then we need to go into play player sequence, then trigger effects, and then wait for sequence to complete. Okay. Let's set up that next state. I also want to set this one up because I think it's probably one of the most one of the most straightforward states. I'm just going to fix a couple of windows. Good. Okay, so we duplicate wait for ability state, and then in this one, this will be the display name ability state. I tried looking into the fact that Visual Studio opens every time that we create a new script or anytime we click on scripts. Like, the fact that it's auto opening sometimes is super annoying. And I tried to find if there was a way to fix that, and I have not been able to still. It's really annoying. I want a on enter and on exit for this. Yoink. Like that. And we're gonna want an on exit as well. I'll write that one by hand. I won't bother going to find a copy and paste. All right, so on enter, we want to display some information. This is a little weird because it almost feels like this should be part of the UI state manager because we're displaying some UI information, but really this is heavily tied into the ability, so I think it's fine for this thing to handle it. The ability state manager. I've also been debating about, let's stop running this for a second. Inside of here, we did a lot of direct references. I don't know how I really feel about that. I feel like we could have done this with events so that stuff wasn't so heavily tied. Because making everything so heavily referenced by, like, in Unity dragging all of these references into this thing is good in some regards, but if I ever want to like remove and re-add some of these pieces, it's kind of sad that I have to constantly be re-updating this UI state manager. So I'm not super sold about the structure that we currently have where we're kind of dragging everything in. It'd be nicer if it was sent by events rather than having these direct references, but I'm gonna let it go for now. Again, I think sometimes I can be a real perfectionist with stuff, and I just don't need to. I don't think this needs to be visible. We'll leave it open. It's good debug information to be able to see it. Okay, so we've got an ability state manager set up. We're gonna need a reference to this display. So yeah, for now we'll do this the fast way. Unity.ui. We will just grab actually we want to be using Text Mesh Pro whenever possible because it's just a more flexible way of doing text and it's built directly in. This will be ability display name, and then this will be a game object, which will be ability display. Okay, then we need to go into... Okay, I'm going to start pinning a couple things here because I think there's some pieces that I would like to have always up while we're working on this, namely the ability state. We're going to pin that over here. I don't think we need the other stuff pinned. Okay, and then these are going to be getters only, so I'm going to grab this syntax, or more specifically this formatting, and then inside of our states we're going to be able to need to get the display name, So we're setting this up so that we'll be able to access it. And then this is going to be a game object, which is display. Just get rid of the M underscore at the front. Is the naming convention I've chosen to go with. This thing also needs reference to TextMesh Pro. Good. Good. Stop complaining at me. Now, here, we need to do ability display set active to true. So when we enter into this state, we want to turn on the ability display, and we want to turn it off when we exit this state. And we want to have a piece of text be displayed. Can you see a preview of the JRPG? I mean, it's in progress. We can hit play if I haven't just broke everything. But I probably was in the middle of writing scripts. Ah, I didn't hit save. It is still, we're only 8 parts in. It's only been a couple hours of work. Well, I guess we're close to 10 now. But nothing's really happening other than you can select the abilities. Okay. So let's go back to actually getting it so that when we select abilities, stuff happens. So we're setting the ability name to our current ability sequence ability ID. So we want to use this ability ID to grab the name that we should display. Now, if I remember how we wrote this stuff, what was it? We had the oh yeah, we need to actually add the ability state manager to here as well, seeing as I'm in this function. I was coming here to grab the ability data, but ability state manager. Ability state manager, the loading manager should also try and initialize this thing. So change states. To init ability state. Okay, so now we're initializing this, but the other thing I was really coming here for was the design data storage. So this is how we're calling this information. So we want to go to the the design data storage for ability design data holder. We want to get data. Did I set this up as a method yet? I have. We want to grab the design data, and we want to grab that design data by this ID, and then grab the name of this ability. Possibly, maybe, sure. We'll go with that for now. So that should turn on the game object for the ability to display. It will set the ability name to be whatever this is. We can do it in this order just so the text is set before we turn it on. Really, it'll all happen in the same frame, so it shouldn't matter, but I'm just going to do it anyways. How long have I been working on this? That is a question. I think it's been 2-3 weeks, but we're only doing a stream, 2-hour stream every like 2 days or something. So it's 7 parts times about an hour and a half on average. So whatever that works out to. So 10-ish hours that we've been on this so far. I haven't really done much off camera either. We are grabbing from Liquid Fire blog posts for Tactical RPG for some of this stuff, which is saving us a bit of extra time too. I try and reference that whenever possible, but I think I have it up off in one of these other screens right now. But these projects here, the Tactical RPGs by the Liquid Fire, we're using the state machine stuff, and some of the ability stuff, stat stuff, and some of the factory setup stuff. Covered some of that in a previous stream, but it's just really good, and I like to call it out because you should, if you're interested, you should check his stuff out. They're really good tutorials. I'm not so much tutorializing as much as just building, without necessarily explaining everything I'm doing in fine detail. Like, I'm not going to go into what a dictionary is and why I choose to do a dictionary in specific spots. Alright, so we got this set up. Next thing we need to do is really the fact that we want to have this display for a certain amount of time before we move on to the next state. This isn't something we've really done yet, but I feel like every state, yeah, there isn't a concept for this. Every state should have a timer built in, I feel like. So we can see how long we've been in a state. So every state should have a time in state value. And then plus equal time dot delta time, so that we get the total amount of time in this state. This does mean that everywhere that we've been calling update state, we also should be calling base dot update state, so that we'll end up calling that update. So we're calling to the parent function, and that parent function for state will update time in state. This also does mean that on enter we should probably set time in state to 0, so that it actually, if we loop through, we don't just continue to add forever. And then why not, we'll also put it on exit as well. So whenever we enter or exit, we're just making sure for surezies we're going to set our time in state to 0. We don't need an exit. Yeah, I'm being overly cautious. It's bad. Alright, so that's set up. Alright, we also need to, again, base dot update. Make sure that we're calling the parent function in all these different spots. Copy and paste, copy and paste. And this is the base version. Alright, so now that seems good. Now we're updating time, and now we can grab that time value. If we make it a protected value, that's probably better, so only children can access it. So now if time in state is greater than, I don't know if I want anyone else to be able to modify this. So I think actually I'm going to be a little overprotective. I never remember the getter setter state. I should really start writing this by hand so that I don't have to keep copy and pasting it everywhere I need it. Do this, and then we'll pass this out. Sadly, Rob, not this time. I know you've been getting caught up on a lot of the old videos. You didn't manage to get it caught up fully before the last stream, did you? Okay, so now we're referencing time in state this way rather than the value, and now we can only get it, we can't set it, so none of the children can mess with time in state. And then if time in state is beyond, let's say for now we'll hard code 2 seconds, then we will change states. So owner, which is our state machine, change states to the next state. Did we set this up to also be the... No, we didn't. So we wait for an ability. Once we get an ability, we change our state to display name ability state. This thing here comes in on enter. It'll set the text. It'll set the game object to true. And then we'll update and go back to... Wait for ability state? What if we just did that for now, just test and see if this is working? So this will just, so essentially right now, our ability stuff, when we perform an ability, it should just go in and show the name of the ability for 2 seconds and then disappear, and then show the ability for 2 seconds and then disappear. Does not look like YouTube is updating for the filter. I might have to find a better way to show chat. Okay, I can go in and I hit re-update and it'll show. Also, chat is like in a bad spot right now. Let's move chat to over here for now. It's fascinating seeing how this is being built. I work in Game Maker, so I understand the logic here, but the differences are cool. Yeah, I mean, I've worked 8 years now in the video game industry. I'm kind of as a technical designer at this point. Sounds like we have some new people here, so I'll reiterate my credentials, I guess. I don't know how else to put that, but I've worked for a long time, and I'm a super good prototyper, is what I would say. People say that I have the ability to get crazy amounts of work done in short periods of time. Not good code, but I can prototype real fast, which is definitely useful for some people sometimes. Duct tape. Always use more duct tape. So we need to fix up some state logic stuff here. So this needs to reference the state machine. State machine also needs to reference this new ability thing that I actually need to set up. So let's just put it right under canvas for now. UI, image. Let's use the same background that we've been using elsewhere. Where's that? This thing that we found on the Unity Asset Store. We drag that into there, move it up, keep it centered, and then let's just play with the width. Let's bring it out to 400. What is the actual size of our game window right now? We're currently developing under 1280 by 720. So 1280 would be the full size. I learned this a while ago, like a year or two ago. I wish I had known this earlier. You can just do divide by 2, and look at that. Figures it out for you. You can do math directly in here. I can do times 5 and whatever. So that's super rad. This is the display object, display ability object. It's a fine name. It's a fine name if I've ever seen one. Text Mesh Pro. Let's have this thing scale to the size of the object, like so. We need to find better fonts at some point too. Attack. How do we feel about that? I feel like it could be slightly higher. It doesn't need to be quite as low. Let's anchor it to the top, and then let's also set the Y anchor to 1, because reverse stuff. Okay, so this is basically perfectly aligned along the top. There's just a little bit of transparency in the image itself, but this is perfectly aligned. I think that's okay. Let's go with that. I like how tight that is up against the edge, but you still get a little bit of like the background behind it. So this will kind of just boop, 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 boop on and off now. So then the ability state manager needs a reference to the game object so we can turn it off, on and off, and the reference to the text so that we can change the name. All right, ability name, sure. As far as I'm going. Good, good, good. And I think this should be testable. So this needs to default to off. We could also set it up so that the onInitialize does that for us. It's probably not a bad habit to get into. So when we initialize, we do ability display.setActive to false. So when we go into, when we first initialize the ability state machine, it'll turn this thing off for us. So even if we forget to turn it off, or if we're tweaking it or whatever, when we hit play, it'll get turned off at the beginning. Good, good, excellent even. Okay. Everything still works. It's always a good first sign. Let's see if this activates now. So we're going to attack Ghost. And then it dissipates. And then if we go into debug mode, did the ability sequence get removed? It did. So now if we do attack Ghost again, defend, technically we have to defend Ghost. We still need to fix some of this targeting. All right, let's do some different abilities. What if we did Black Magic Fire? This should show up as fire. Oh. There was a flicker. Okay, so is this not working the way I want it to? Is it... Oh, is it doing bad things? So let's set this to like 10 seconds, because really, if we've built this ability sequence manager properly, we shouldn't be in a state where we should steal the next ability sequence yet. So I should be able to stack up abilities is what I'm trying to get at, is while an ability is being played out, if we do Barbarian and Archer right away at the same time right now, so if we go Black Magic Fire, we should see fire for 10 seconds, and then we can queue up attack but attack shouldn't get used until this is finished. We're counting down, imagine, somewhere in the back. Okay, it flickered. So it flickered because I queued them up, and then there's not a soft delay between them. We don't have any kind of delay timer. So as soon as we went back to the wait for ability state, it just went right back into the next display. So that's fine. This is working as intended then. We just need to add a bit of buffer space in the future. Yeah, it's totally good. So that is operational though. I mean, it doesn't do much at this point, but we kind of are now showing that we can perform an ability. The ability gets pushed to the sequence manager, then the ability state machine detects that there's an ability on the stack, takes that ability, pushes it into its state machine, and then the ability sequence manager can take more abilities onto the stack and not interrupt the ability state machine until the current ability is done. Yeah, once we add the attacks and stuff, it'll be better. Because you would never see the title go back to back. There would always be some states in between. Let's do the next step. So next, after we display, we want to play the player sequence. Let's go back to our... Where did I put the FF6? Did I close it? Oh, why did I close it? I'm the worst human. Alright, fine. We won't... What if we reopen tab? We reopen tab. Okay. Alright, so from yesterday's stream when we were playing Final Fantasy VI, let's take another look at some of this combat. So I just want to double check this. I'm really just looking... Yeah, so for attacks, normal basic attacks, they just don't show the ability. Incorrect. Input. Auto crossbow. Character steps forward, fires. Okay. It's really how do we handle that state. That's like, how do we handle the step forward and then fire? Yeah, well, it looks like they even, like, it's faster when you just do a normal attack. It doesn't even wait for the display, so it just skips that state. So certain abilities can be set to not use the display name, which primarily looks to be just attack. Let's start by just getting the ability animate, or getting the character to animate, and then we can kind of go from there and, like, work through the logic of how this needs to be set up. So we need a new state, which will be, I don't really care. We'll just go with wait for ability state, copy that. Unity decides it needs to open Visual Studio, even though I'm not ready for it yet. So this will be the play animation ability state. We may end up changing a lot of this. I'm not 100% positive on this logic, but the easiest way for me to work through it is to just build it, and then we can change it later. This one probably needs to act more similarly to this guy. Mostly using on enter. I don't know if we'll need an update right now. Oh, we probably will. We'll need some sort of way of knowing when to leave. After enqueuing the action, you need a new idle animation using the action until the action is popped from the list. Then move the animation into the step forward. Activate an animation after the display name. I agree, Rob. I agree. Let's take a look at what we have for those animations. So if we go into the character models we've been using, which is going to be... Oh, goodness. Let's go find them in the design data. So if we bring up our design data, which is this tab, we're currently using Nightmail 2 as the prefab. Oh, right, there's spaces. So this is the name of the addressable. Actually, can I find it in the addressables? I can. This is actually faster. I can double click here in order to find it. Okay, cool. So if we bring the knight in and we drag him into main entities, characters, character 1, That should put him in the right position. Yep, so he's standing where he should be if he was fighting. And then, can we have him perform animations from where he is currently, or do we need to run the game? I guess we have to run the game anyways. Alright, so if we're in here and we go into the parameters tab, let's see, what could we do? Could we do a walk? I mean, we could. We could do this as like we could set them to relax when they're not, when they don't have an action ready, and then switch relax off when they are prepared for an action. That might actually work probably pretty well. So they start relaxed, then they go into active. I don't know if we'll have a different version for casting right now, because all of our casts are toggles. Yeah, we also can't go from relaxed into cast. We have to go back to this idle to be able to cast the animation, so that works pretty well. So there's not like a idle. This could be casting. I like this for casting. But again, once we'd have to toggle that animation off, then perform the attack, because it looks like everything has to be in this state in order for the state machine to work. Let's take a look at the animator. This thing is amazing. Yeah, everything is off of this idle. So if we wanted to have another like cast idle, we would have to reduplicate all of these transitions. Oh, that sounds like a nightmare. It's like 2 hours of nothing but actual like design work. It's not even design work, it's just state machine logic. What are some of the other ones? We also have spear idle. These are all coming off of main idle. Can I not? Apparently I can't. I thought I could mouse scroll by like grabbing with mouse, but why? Okay. It really wants to zoom in on that particular part of the screen. Alright, well, whatever. Not even if I click on it will it let me be able to look around better. We might be able to do the jump. The state machine just might get a little wonky. We could play with it though. The other option is we go into like, yeah, I don't know. There are ways around this nonsense, but I just don't want to tackle all of this animation work today because it doesn't feel productive. Like, figuring out how to do animations is not something that I'm like, oh man, that's something I really want to do. Like, we'll have to if we want to make this thing feel more polished, but I'd rather get the loop running. So let's not worry about the active ability state stuff right now. It's more polishy than it is necessary to get this thing up and running. So let's just leave them in their natural idle and not worry about that. And then when we go into the play animation state, we'll actually just have them enter into their main ability. We're starting to get into some ability stuff in general. I wrote a script a long time ago when I used this stuff for base ability animation. How did this thing work? Start animation. Animation notification with the animation name. No one references this anymore because this was taken from a different project. Okay. I guess we don't have to do the ability state animation stuff the way I did before. I was just hoping to reuse as much logic as possible. Sorry, I'm debating. Oh, sorry, Rob, you asked what talk looks like. I didn't see that. Backwards, run backwards, dashing. Roll backwards is pretty funny. crossbow aim right, spin, defend. Talk is way down. Okay, sorry. I was just having fun looking at animations. Talking. Digging. I want a status effect which is just prone where they're at, or maybe that's for stop. Oh, crying could work. Crying could work as a casting spell. Hoping that might. Yeah. Yeah. Again, Rob, I want to leave. I'm gonna leave the idle states for later because I think that's more polishy. But yeah, when we get to the idea of like them entering into different states for whether they're gonna perform an attack or a cast, we'll set that up. But for right now, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm not gonna touch that. We're just gonna let them stay in their idle normally, and then they'll just perform an attack. Okay, so we had them animating before in this engine. I was looking at an old script, this old base animation, but I don't think we need that right this second. I feel like there's other ways that we can do this that we've done before. How were we setting them up to animate? Was that inside of the manager, the combat manager? Is this thing what was? Yes, this is what was calling set. So this was on the current active character .prefab.set trigger. I imagine we could probably do that. The trick will be that we have to get the current active character, which we can get possibly. Okay, so how do we do this? We need to call to the combat character manager. How do we currently store the character models? This is where it starts to get like less like snappy and more like technical. I'm gonna change the music up a little bit because I'm starting to have to make like decisions. We gotta make some important or some structural decisions about how we set this stuff up. So my first thought is that we could just turn this into a dictionary and then have the character models also be added to this list based off of their IDs. That way we can just go character model in combat dictionary, get character based off its ID, then grab the prefab inside of it, and then... But we're having to direct reference a lot of stuff when we don't have to. Let's take another look at the way that I had set this up before, which was inside of here. I had set up a notification where we sent that this unit was playing an ability notification with an ability name. I also had the concept of an animation receiver. Okay, this thing here was actually setting it up so that we could have specific keyframes that would send an event when that keyframe was hit. Oh god, so many things to handle. Alright, let's just keep direct referencing. I think that this is probably the better way to do things. But instead, we're gonna just do character, combat manager, public, character, model, get character, model, Character ID. What are you... You're complaining because not all return paths return something. Okay. So let's fix that. Return null by default. And then otherwise, if character in combat dot ID equals this character ID, then return this character in combat. I really don't like this. I really, really don't. But it's going to get us up and running, and I can always refactor and change this logic later. So then we have combat character manager dot instance dot get character model, passing in the ability. What was it? Current ability sequence dot attacker will be our ID. Then we can grab dot prefab dot set trigger. Oh shoot, did not mean to pull that out. We lost our progress bars at some point. I need to figure that out off screen, how to fix that as well. And this needs to be current ability dot ability ID to grab the animation that we need to play. All right. So then if we hit play on this, we should now see the name of the ability appear. Once the name of the ability disappears, the character should perform an attack. Something broke. What state are we in? We're currently in the wait for ability state. Go to display name. After we go to the display name, we now need to go to play animation. That's why. This won't have any exit either, so once it plays the animation, it won't leave or go back. I guess we could technically fix that real quick. We can just have it so that it immediately on update goes back. This should work. Performing an attack, character attacks. I mean, it works. It's not... It's very hard-coded, is kind of my main problem with it. We can try, like, cure as basically just a way of seeing if the other animations work. Yeah, the cast animation works as well. How do we actually transition out of this state? I think this is when we have to get into something that I kind of loathe a little bit, but it's what it is. So when we go into here, When I have the barbarian perform black magic, the barbarian casts a spell. At a certain point in that, I need to exit debug mode and go back to normal. At a certain point during this animator, we go into black magic, which is going to be somewhere in here. More specifically, this thing has been set up so that when the... Oh, sorry, it's not going to be called black magic. It's going to be cast spell. So one of these things is... When we hit this toggle, it eventually makes one of these white arrows trigger that pushes us into one of these states. Likely, hopefully named something similar. So we're looking for cast spell here. And we enter into this cast spell animation. Okay, now inside of the cast spell animation, we need to add a keyframe. Not an important, we need an event. Oh god, it's been a while since I've set one of these up. For right now, let's set it up to about there. And what this will say is essentially... Okay, I need to do some research. Let's go into Unity animation events. Using animation events. Alright, so animation event. When you add an event, the inspector venue displays several fields. These fields allow you to specify the name of the function you want to call and the value parameters you want to pass in. That's an example class. Okay. Cancel. So inside of cast, sorry, I think I may have lost that. We want to go in here. We want to add an event. We want to move that event to somewhere like here-ish, somewhere near the end. We're going to call a function. Actually, there's a name of a function that I want. Animation. Event receiver. Process animation event with a string value, which will be cast complete, I guess. Apply. Oh, it failed. How come it failed to add that event? Oh, it didn't. It just... Once I hit apply, it unselected it. Okay, so now this thing will call process animation event with this string being passed in. How do we double check to make sure that we're calling to the right spots? An event to the inspector window adds the number of function you want to call. Do we have to set the... The question is, do we have to set the object? Or is that what this is doing? That's what this is. That's why I wrote this script a long time ago. Okay, so this script on start will get my animation component, It will go through that animation and it will set the animation's events, all events, to reference this script, and that way we don't have to add them by hand. Right, that's what I wrote here. And then the my unit, I don't think we even use in this. No, we send out which unit is calling this event, which we don't need at this time. Okay. Okay. So as long as I have that script attached, we'll be okay. And we should get an event. Okay. Okay. So here's what we do. Sorry, there was a bit of like, I had to figure stuff out there for a second. So once we go into here, we want to, on enter, we want to do some add listeners, which we haven't done in a little bit. Which class did we write that needed to do that? Going to find syntax for functions and stuff. Sure. So the reason I'm not a huge fan of, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a huge fan of what we're about to do here, which is setting up events on the animation. The reason I'm not a huge fan of this is that in order for this to work, it means that every single animation that we make also needs to have an event attached to it in order for our system to move forward. The reason we want this, though, is that we might want to play the effect of a character getting hit midway through the animation of the character swinging their sword. So it's not as simple as just saying, hey, the character attacks, and when the animation is finished, play the effect. What I actually want to have happen is the character is swinging, and at a very specific point in that timeline, we can see so here is where that event is currently. We can kind of see in this bottom section. If I enlarge it a bit more, it helps. But we've essentially set this breakpoint to be that it'll say, hey, perform the attack here, which makes sense because the last part of this animation from here downwards is just the character going back to rest. So it would feel like there's a slight delay if we just wait for the animation to finish and then perform the attack. So instead, I'm setting up an event that says, hey, I'm done, so that the particle effects and the damage text can go off a little bit sooner, and it feels just a little snappier. But now every single time we add a new animation into this system, I have to make sure that I go in and add an event for it. Not a big deal, it's just a pain. All right, so back to what I was doing before I got sidetracked by other sidetracks. We want to go into here. One of these guys adds listeners. Which one added listeners? Targeting? Targeting. Okay. So we want to have some on listener functions and some... We want some of this logic. Copy and paste into here. Let's go like that. So we want to have animation receiver dot animation event notification receive animation event is the function that we will call. We will call it here, and for our purposes, all this thing needs to do is change back to the wait state for the time being, because we're done. Now we don't need the update actually for this. Yeah, that's all we need to do. Eventually this will go into the attack, but first I just want to see if this logic from this code that I wrote eons ago still works. So we're just gonna add got animation event, if I can spell. Okay, now we also want to go into the factory for units, and we want to do object.add component animation event receiver. We'll do that for the monsters and the character units. So now they should have this event on them. Okay, so if we hit play, in theory, it's a pretty big in theory. Where do the characters live? Let's first check on them. So Character Knight now has an animation event. Receiver, okay. So if we go Black Magic, Fire, Target, we see Fire is the thing, the animation will cast. Got an animation event. Sweet. So at a specific frame on that cast animation, we received an event that went back to our play animation ability state. So now we know when we want to move on based on that. Good. Good. I think it all just worked, and that was a little scary. I don't think it actually matters what the string we pass in is right now, because we're not actually using any of the arguments for this thing. If we go back to definition for this, yeah, we pass the string through, so we could use the string on the event to signify something if we really wanted to, but for now, I think this is fine. I think we're good. Okay, now let's set up another state. So we have performed the animation, we are exiting the animation. The only other small caveat I wouldn't mind doing real quick is just setting up events for the other animations that we need, which is going to be attack. No, those are... These are kind of the main ones that we're using. Yeah, so we're not using defend right now, but I'm gonna set up melee attack right, crossbow reload, and melee attack right 3. Okay, so under the animation section, which luckily all these guys share the same animations, but for monsters we'll have to do this as well, because every monster has their own animation sets, because every model is different, so they have different animations. There's a lot to set up. I might do some of this event setup off camera because it's not necessarily interesting. Once you've seen me do it once, you've seen me do it 100 times. Events, add. Okay, where do we want to do? Probably somewhere around 67. Okay. And then the only thing that matters here is the name of the function, which is process animation event. And this can be on attack complete. Again, it doesn't matter. You know what? I just maybe to save confusion later, because I might come back later and just be like, why did I add the string? I'm just not going to add any strings for these right now. Probably somewhere similar around 67. Okay, apply, and then crossbow. Reload. Is that really what we're using? That's the animation that we chose to perform attacks? Ah, I see, because it goes into crossbow shoot action from reload. Okay. So it's actually this one we want to add the event to. So it does a reload and then fire automatically, but we only have to call one to get both of those animations. So we probably want to have this around, again, 67-ish, somewhere around here-ish. We can always play with these later and really fine-tune it, but Yeah, that'll probably be about right. Okay, so now all of the animations that we're currently using on the characters will have events, because if we didn't set these up, if we performed an attack with the crossbow guy and we didn't have the event set up, then the game would just stop. They wouldn't move forward because it would never receive the event and it would never leave the state. Okay. That's actually, you know what? That's a really good point. That's a really, really, really good point. In fact, I think what we should do is, just for, again, safety more than anything, we should set it up so that there is an update for this thing, which calls, this has to override now, base.update, and if time and state is greater than 10.0 f seconds, then move on to the next state, whatever that's going to be in a second. We'll rename it, but we'll also do a debug log error, because this is technically an error. Never got animation event for, and then we'll pass in the ability name. So that we can know the game won't freeze, won't hard lock up if we fail to get an animation event for something, but we will move on, but we'll get an error saying that something went wrong, so we can at least try and fix it. Yeah? Okay. So never got an event for name, animation, blah. So this ability never gave me back this ability with this animation never sent an event. Cool. 10 seconds should be long enough for most of our abilities in the game to have sent back an event. Now we're moving on to the next event, which will be basically applying damage as well as playing particle effects and the such. Similar animation to play event, I think, or play animation. I think this is going to be resolve. Resolve effects ability state. Again, I'm not sold on a lot of these names, but they'll do. Unity, stop opening it. I'm not ready for you yet. I'm not ready for Visual Studio. Okay, now we can go into the play animation state. It needs to change to this one and to this one. Good. And then this guy here. I don't know what this guy's logic is yet. Okay, so there's a couple things we can play with here. I think number one would be getting the targeter to play an on-hit animation, probably, at this point. Get monster model. Monster ID. Monsters in combat. Monsters in combat ID matches monster ID, then return monster. Okay, and then inside of Resolve effect. We can get the character. We can get the targets. Targets is technically a list, so I guess we could do this for all of them, for each. Grab the prefab, set the trigger, and then play an on-hit animation. Which right now we don't have anywhere in the design data, so we'll just hard code. Yeah, this is where it starts to feel like this design data should exist somewhere. Like, I don't know. I feel like there should be each enemy or each character has their own on-hit stored inside their design data. And then depending on the type of ability, it may need different effects or different animations. Like right now we're attacking a monster, so we want to play an on-hit, but there might be a situation in which we want to heal our allies, and the allies might want to do like a fist pump, like, you know, throw their arms in the air and be like, yeah, we're healed. So it won't always want to be an on-hit animation that we play here. Sorry, I'm trying to find, I think this section. We want to hit play, and then we want to click on some enemies and see what the name of the parameter we need to call is, and hopefully the 3 different enemies all use the same event. So no, they're not here. They're under enemies, enemy 1, Cactus Man. Cactus Man parameters are take damage. Okay. All these enemies come from the same asset bundle pack, so hopefully they're all set up the same. Take damage, excellent. And final guy, Death Knight, would be take damage. I can't copy and paste it, so let's hope I spell it correctly. Take damage. Cool. So every monster that was targeted will take damage. And then we can say after 2 seconds, I don't think we need an error for this. We can just go back to the wait for ability state. I don't know if we necessarily need the listeners. This seems fine. Okay. Does it work? Attack, ghost. Character performs an attack, character gets hit. Seems to be working. We'll attack the Death Knight, attack the ghost. We'll cast Cure on the Cactus Man. We'll attack the ghost. We'll attack the Death Knight. So one thing that's kind of annoying right now is I can't click here very well because of the names covering the button. So we're just going to add a canvas group, and we're going to say does not block raycasts and is not interactable. Okay, and then we should be able to go back. That should have hopefully applied to all of these guys, and now we should be able to click past the names a little bit faster. But I think that's working. That's like, we're able to perform an attack. It's like, it needs a lot of tweaking. Like, it's not polished at all. There's no particle effects. There's no damage numbers. I mean, we're not even applying damage at this point, but like, it is setting up a series of different events that are then being played out one after another. Feels a bit slow. I feel like we could probably exit this state a lot faster. Probably a half a second after we enter it. The attack name probably could not stay up as long. None of this stuff matters as much. It's like super finessey things that, like, again, I'm probably going a little overboard with setting up, but starting to really see why that animation state when they're performing an attack really matters. Like, you don't notice it so much in Final Fantasy VI unless you're really looking for it, I find, but without it, you really notice the fact that, like, it's hard to tell who's about to perform an attack because they don't change states. Like, visual clarity is pretty important, so we'll probably want to set that up next. Interesting. Okay. This is working, though. How are we doing on time? Oh, geez, we're only just over an hour. Oh, I know, Rob, but I wanted to see this up and running more than spending, like, 45 minutes trying to get the animation set up properly, like, with the idols. I'd rather see this loop first and be like, how does this feel? Yeah, I know, right? But we're an hour and 20, so I guess a little over an hour. We're a good way through. So the next steps, honestly, we could get the idols up and running as one avenue, but the other thing that would be really nice is getting damage performed on these enemies as well, so that we can start dealing damage and then have numbers fly off of the enemies as well, so you can see the damage being done, as well as seeing enemies die. So I might want to, the idols are important, but I think I'd rather go that direction, because also there's targeting. Like, Cure shouldn't target enemies, it excuse me, should target allies, so, like, we probably want to get that up and running, and that is involved with getting the idols operational. So, or sorry, I'm choking on my words. That's involving getting the ability set up correctly. Oh man. Okay. We're okay. We're not dying. We're alive. So, how do we get... No, the idols shouldn't take too much work, but I'd rather tackle the ability factory next, just because it's been something I've been putting off for a while, and I actually don't think it's too hard, and it'll honestly make a lot of this stuff quite a bit easier. Where do we start with the ability factory? Okay, Rob. Okay. I don't... So, but here's... Let's try. If it is literally just setting up two pieces of lines of code, one when we put the sequence on the stack, and one when we... go to perform the actual real action, then fine. But if it ends up being more than just this, then I'm going to leave it for now. I think it wants to be the reverse of this logic too, but again, I just want to see if it works first. So this is set bool. Relaxed. Oh, set bool needs the option, so we're setting relaxed to true. Maybe okay, we'll write 3 lines of code. So we set relaxed to false here. We'll set on creation relaxed to true, which is going to be inside of the character model stuff. So on character model, once we grab the prefab, we'll do prefab dot set relaxed to true here, so that when we first create them, they are in the relaxed state. Then when we perform the attack, perform a sequence, I don't know if this should actually be here. I'm going to put it one level back because we might use this same functionality for monsters. So here inside of the target selected, we'll set its prefab to relax false. And then inside of the ability states, when we go to play the animation, we will set it I feel like I've messed this up. Okay, if we go back to set it to false, set it to true. No. Set it to true here, set it to true here. Whenever we, actually, I guess the actual logic we want is on exit. On exit, set relax to true. That's the logic we want. So no matter how we change states. All right, let's see if it works. So they are relaxed until we perform an attack. Then they go into an idle state, they attack, and then they go back to being relaxed. Okay, Rob, it's fine. You were right. It's like 3 lines of code. But now if we wanted to have it so like it was in the design data like you're suggesting, and having it so that there's like multiple different idles depending on what you're doing, that might take a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're on the same page there at least. But this, you're right, this does help a bit so I can see kind of a little bit better who's actually performing the attack. This whole thing needs a whole lot of polish, which is what I was trying to describe to people in chat. People were like, how long are you going to go for this? Are you going to build this whole video game? And it's like, I mean, probably, but like not like a polished video game. I'll probably have it functional, but... Okay, so now the next thing is we need to get ability factory set up, because the ability factory will also determine which target buttons we turn on, how targeting different enemies affects the actual, like, the damaging, the chance of hit. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that getting the ability stuff set up will work for us. Let's first kind of do, no, I did this before where I talked about the liquid fire blog stuff and I went way too far into the detail of it. For this stream in particular, I'm going to try and learn from those mistakes. If you want to know more about this stuff, I would recommend like digging into it yourself and reading through all these blogs. I will do a quick overview of what this ability stuff is though. So let's go into projects. This is essentially like 3 or 4 different like ability sections all crammed into one quick thing. We don't need ability range or ability effect. They don't matter because this is a tutorial on a tactical RPG, so you need to know how far out you can target something and what the area of effect is for it. For us, we're not going to need these 2 pieces. The things we care about is the hit rate, the ability effect, and magic. Hit rate, again, has some logic to do with facing, which we're not going to need to carry about as much, so it makes it a little bit more straightforward for us. But you're essentially saying that, hey, when someone tries to perform an attack, we're going to calculate whether or not we're going to auto hit, auto miss based off of like if the character is like blind or different status effects that might be affecting it. But we're going to try and figure out whether like do their evasion stat -100 or something to figure out what their chance of being hit is. There's an A attack, which is Yeah, this is a chance of success are partially determined by the defender's evasion stat. So this is basically just some logic based around, hey, if they're evading, they have to clamp it between 5 and 95. And then also relative to facing and stuff, there's a little bit of numbers involved. But you're essentially checking to see, calculating whether or not you'll hit with an attack using this script. And then this is specials, which is for like status effect hits. And then full type, which... special abilities normally hit without fail. Okay, so this is for a 100% chance going to hit guaranteed type effect. So that is, and then there's stop and blind status effects that gets built here. But this essentially performs like I'm going to click and I see my percent chance to hit. And then the way this gets set up is on the abilities. Cure, for instance, never misses, exactly. There's not a good example of it. Let's go into here because I want to give a visual of the way we're setting this up because that's really the most important thing, I think. So when Liquid Fire sets these things up, it's set up in such a way that there is an ability. That ability has an ability power, which can be physical, magical, whatever different things, and it has a level, which is essentially just the base power of an ability. Like if you've ever played Pokemon, Pokemon has a base like, hey, this power is a melee 30 or a special 70. That's kind of like the level in this terminology. Range and area effect we don't care about. Underneath of the ability, there are different like basically each of these can be a thing that happens. So one of the things that can happen from an attack is damage. Another thing that can happen from the attack is inflict blind. So damage is this prefab here, which is setting up an A-type hit attack, which is just a standard attack hit type, so a physical or a basic ability. And then it has the default ability effect target, which I don't know where that is right now, but we'll go into the actual script in the project to look at it. And then there's also the damage ability effect. Then there's also the status effect, a ability effect, a standard default effect target, and then an inflict ability status effect, which is saying, hey, you're going to affect the status effect for 10 turns in terms of a tactical RPG. So a lot of this stuff is built around this idea of rather than having like all of this information in one class, which is like your ability, or in the design data for the ability, instead you're setting up a series of different classes on game objects in the engine. I think the reason that this works really well for the Liquid Fire like project that is built is that he sets up these things as prefabs and then instantiates the prefabs underneath the character as all of the abilities that you can perform, which is super nice because then all of his data-driven logic is in prefabs in Unity. So if you want to add a new ability, you just create a new prefab, set up that prefab with a couple scripts on it, you modify some outward ability stats, and then you essentially have a new ability. Super fantastic. For us, we're setting everything up via the I've lost it. It's gone forever. Wait, how did I close that tab? How am I closing tabs? I'm so bad at this. So bad at everything. It doesn't matter. I don't have to bring it up, but I want to bring it up. Okay. For us, we're doing everything in design data because I think it's easier to edit stuff in spreadsheet than it is even to edit things as prefabs. So what I want to do for the time being is I want to take the exact same structure that he has, where the abilities are set up in the game project in a similar way, but I want to generate these structures of an ability and then the effects of an ability at runtime based off of our design data. So our design data should say whether or not it should say what type of ability it is, whether it's magical based or physical based, so we determine which script that we will load. Which script, whether it is a ability physical power or a magical physical power. And then our design data will also determine what types of effects it will have, whether it has a damage effect, whether it has a cure effect, whether it is a full chance of hit, or whether it is S-type, A-type, whatever that is. I like Now, I will say that there is a way in which I could construct this to all be classes instead of components in Unity. And there, if you read through his entire blog post, he talks about the reason why this is a little bit slow, but there's a lot more like prototyping power from using it all on scripts. I think for the time being, I like the idea of it still being scripted objects in Unity for now. And I want to talk about this, and I know I said I didn't want to do tutorialing, but I do want to mention the fact that if, for example, characters have, let's say, I don't know, 50 different magic abilities, and there is like 5 different characters on the team, that's like 250 ability objects that we need to generate. And if they have different damage effects, inflict effects, it's a lot of objects very quickly. So we'll likely refactor this to not be in that same structure of like all of it being components on an object, and we'll probably refactor it later to be just standard C# classes, which would be a little bit faster. For now, we're going to set it up this way. Cool, good, excellent. I feel like I got through that way faster. If it didn't make sense, well, I'm sorry. So we've already brought some of these scripts in because I've basically written them line by line following the blog posts in the past, so I just grabbed it from a previous project that I had based this off of, or based a previous project I had based his blog, previous project that I had based off of his blogs. So we have some of these here. They might be slightly different. I may have modified them for my own purposes. I'm sure that won't cause problems, but all right. So we want to have it so when we load all of the abilities, we want to create all the, or when we load a character, we also want to load all of the abilities as objects under that character. So we need to go into the unit factory, character design data, monster design data. The character design data will have access to the list of the abilities for us, and we can grab the abilities from the design data. Okay. So let's start with just the characters. We can deal with monsters getting abilities in the future, but we don't even have design data set up for them to have abilities, so they're future problems. Let's create a new function, which will be the magical world of add ability. Add ability? I think that's all we need. Is we need to add an ability. This ability needs to take not the design data, but an ability ID. So we want to do a for each int I in ability IDs. I is a very terrible name for that. I'm going to be a better programmer and I'm going to name it like this. Ability ID. Helps if I add semicolons. Look at me trying to do stuff. All right, so ability ID, but this now needs to take a couple things. It needs to take the object, and then it needs to take the ability ID. Now we've done that, we need to create a new game object. Most of this other stuff is just adding components to the base object, but we want to create a new game object, which I have not really had to do in this project before. How do we write that syntax again? I'm going to just look it up. It's going to be faster than me just playing with IntelliSense trying to figure it out. Unity, create game object in code. Nope, that's not what I want. Create an empty game object in code. Cool game object made from code. Ability object. And this will be... Okay, you know what? At the very top of this thing, data storage, ability holder, dot instance dot data dot ability design data ability ID. This is a ability design data. We need to grab at the very start the ability design data that we are trying to set up. So we are saying, hey, this is an ability design data. And now we can use this moving forward. So now we can say ability design data dot name. So the name of this object will be the name of the ability. Then we can set the parent. So transform dot set parent to be object. Dot transform. And then for the sake of my own sanity, I don't want these things floating around everywhere. I'm going to set transform.set position. Really? Set. Losing my mind. I just need to call set local position vector3.0. So just set the parent, and then the local position will be my position relative to my parent. I want to be 0, so essentially I want to be in the same position as my parent. Okay, so that's set up the basic game object. It has a name, it's a thing. Then following the same structure that he did in the blog post that Liquid Fire did, we want to do add component, and we want to add a physical or magical or base. Let's take a look at these. So I kind of briefly talked about the structure, but I haven't showed these different things. So this base power looks like it's mostly empty. Abstract, abstract, abstract. Get power doesn't do anything. Okay, so it doesn't look like you can actually use base power. This is just a parent class for the two different types, which is physical and magical, which essentially just says when I get my base attack power for this ability, am I using magic or magic defense, or am I using physical and attack? Yeah, this is grabbing the unit target get component dot stats dot defense. We have to change the way that we store data. Right now we kind of pass data, we're not really passing data around nicely. We should really be using unit more, which is right now an empty class. With only the comment that I might want to add the concept of a row to a unit, but right now it's pretty empty. I feel like we might want to convert character model to be unit, just for ease of use. So let's say right now that everything is a physical ability power. And we'll need to add some design data to determine whether this is ability or physical or magical in the future. Physical or magical. This is going to take a little bit of time, and it's not going to take very long at all, but I want to keep on this trek. So now we want to create another game object. So the next game object is going to be ability. Oh, also, we might want to grab... I like the default names they're giving me. Thank you for that. I don't know if I like the name level for this, but we'll leave it. I don't know the scale of the numbers offhand, so set from design data. Again, I just want to keep with this flow. We'll go back and we'll change all this stuff to be from the design data in a few minutes. This is going to be ability object effect. So we're going to have to change the way our design data currently works, which I don't hate. So I again, right now our design data for the abilities is pretty bare bones. It just is mostly around the UI more than anything, around whether or not we open a submenu or not. We haven't really gotten into setting all this stuff up, which is like multi-attack, power. This power, I guess, is technically the level. Like elemental type, chance of status effect, like sound effects, particles. Like all that stuff hasn't really been set up, which is why I hit it, and we're not actually importing it right now. But as we start setting this up, we'll probably need to change the way that's formatted. And that's fine, because I actually really like this structure. This idea that an attack does damage, but it also might inflict a status effect, or it might inflict multiple status effects. And the way you determine that is just by adding more pieces to it. So when we get into our design data for the abilities, I think the structure that we'd like to hit is something similar, where after we declare the animation and all this nonsense, I think it might make more sense to have some sort of like, instead of like, I don't even know if multi-attack makes sense, but instead of having like chance of effect, we might just want to have a series of columns, and those columns have like essentially like type of ability and like ability effect, which is either going to be damage or inflict a status effect or any other type of ability that we can come up with. And then you can have as many of those like sets of columns as you want. Okay. Right. So assuming that, let's set up one basic one, which is just damage in the right now we'll assume all status or all abilities are just damage. And then once we have that up and running, then we can figure out how we modify our design data to take multiple different types of effects, as well as curative effects and healing and antidotes and all that nonsense. Okay, so then let's just hard code create one damage effect. So this will be one thing. It will be damage. All of them will just have damage for now. This is the ability effect object. We want to do the same thing we did before, where we want to set it to have the parent be the ability object, and then we want to set this to be 0 as well. Then we're going to want to add some components to this. So what are the components that we need? For a damage effect, we would want it to be an A-type hit effect, default effect target, and a damage ability effect. So add component. Hit effect. A-type hit effect. We want it to be... No, it was target. Hit caps lock by mistake. Target. Default ability effect target. And then let's dig into these real quick just to take a look at what these logics actually do. And then damage ability effect. Okay, so what is A-type doing? Let's just skim the code. So when we call calculate on a tile, we need to change this logic too. It used to be that a tile contained contents, and then from that contents, you could go target.content.get unit, but that's super tactical RPG, which we don't need. We'll probably just refactor this so that instead of taking or dealing a target, we'll just take in a unit directly. Because we target units in our JRPG system, not tiles. So I have to do a refactor on a lot of this logic. Okay, so we get a defender. Then we do automatic hit, which is inside of base hit effect. And then we call post automatic hit chant notification. So this is sending a message out to everyone to be like, hey, automatic hit. And then this is a match exception. And then anyone out there can then toggle on true if they receive this message. So you might have a sword that says, I automatically hit. And so that sword will go, oh, you're trying to check for automatic hits? I care about that. I'm going to toggle it to true so that when we get this message back, the match exception would be set to true. The automatic hit is resolved as true, and then we go into final 0. And final 0 says evasion 0 out of 100. We would get back 100% chance to hit. And then automatic miss, same idea. There might be a special effect where the character is like, hey, I'm this attacker, I'm sending out this, I'm targeting you. Does anyone care about automatic miss? And then the enemy might have something of like a status or something of affecting them that's like, oh, I'm going to use Pokemon for an example. I'm a ghost type and you're performing a normal attack. You automatically miss, toggle true. Then we get back this message that this notification would have sent out that message. Someone out there in the world would set this exception to true. The automatic miss would come back as true, and we would set evasion to 100, and we would fail. Otherwise, if we don't get any messages back from anyone, we get evade of the defender, which is probably just doing, get component in parent stats. So getting from the target, get a component stats, and then sending back the status effect, which has to be clamped between 0 and 100. That seems straightforward enough. Oh, I went too far back. And then we take that evade, we adjust for status effects, which we probably don't have much of that set up. Yeah, this is just sending out a message, status effect check notification, which is just sending back. Some status effects might listen for this and then change them slightly. For like blind or silence or different stuff, I think. And then we clamp evade between 5 and 95, so you can never have 100% chance of evade or less than a 5% chance to evade, and then we do a final based off that evade, which again does that integer. Right, and this calculate roll for hit would do a roll, and then roll, it does a roll between 0 and 100, because in Unity 100 any integer ranges are exclusive with max, so that it won't actually roll 101. It'll only roll one less than that, because you might want to use this with lists, and it doesn't want to out of range you. So this is basically rolling between 0 and 100. If we get this chance, if that roll is less than chance, then we hit. Okay, that all seems pretty straightforward. I don't know if we'll even hook up hit chance yet, but at least we looked at it and we understand what it's doing. This here is checking is target, so again we would pass in probably a unit in the future, and then we would get this default one just basically says target.contents, get component stats. As long as the stats is not null and the health is above 0, then it's a valid target. Not the most useful of targeting effects. What's the other one? There's another one which is enemy only, which says get the alliance of me, get the alliance of the target, and then if the alliance matches, then this is a valid target. Okay. Is there anywhere this is hooked up yet? Probably not. It is. It's inside base effect. Which is apply. Which basically, this is where we go, hey, base ability effect, which damage inherits from. So apply effect, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just go into damage then, because it looks like this all leads into the damage effect that we're about to look into. So damage ability effect, what is this doing? So this gets calls predict, which right now gets called on apply down below. So in order, we on apply, it's base effect. Okay, so this on apply isn't being called anywhere. This is kind of where we'll need to start. So when we go into the resolve effects or whatever for that state, wherever that state went, in our state machine. Resolve effects. In here, when we target the player to take damage, we will also want to be calling the ability damage effect class that we were just in. We'll want to be calling this class and call .onApply with the targets. And then when we go into that targets, we'll do a predict. That predict will go in and do get the stats for attack, defense, do a bit of calculate damage. It'll apply some bonuses. It'll get some stats for damage and then return a negative amount of that damage. And then that value then will be added some random variance to, clamp the damage between min and max damage, which I believe is set somewhere to be like negative 99 and max, yeah, 99. So whatever that damage is. And then apply the damage by doing defender.stats HP value plus that value, which will in this case be negative for a damage effect. That all makes sense. I do want to go into base ability effect real quick though and just look at this on apply. Yeah, this overrides that basic ability effect. So normally, are we not calling that anywhere? Oh. Oh, this is the function we should be calling. Okay. Yes. Okay, never mind. On the base ability. Did we not add that in our factory? I'm really glad I'm looking through all this stuff really fine-tooth comby. I don't know if it's super interesting, but we did not add the ability. Sorry, I'm just digging through stuff now. There's a bunch of other scripts in here, like mana cost and other things like that. I'm just curious, because it's been a while since I've looked through this stuff. I thought I had a handle on it, but now I'm not sure where this ability should be being tacked onto. Because it doesn't look like, based off of that tutorial structure, the simple visualization I've been looking at, that ability is set anywhere in here. And ability isn't a base class of one of these other ones. So where am I supposed to be adding this component? Because it is a mono behavior. Can perform. Failed notification. Okay. Perform with target. We'll call and apply the effect to that target, and we call perform on each of the targets. We send notifications as we go. We also use isTarget, which currently isn't referenced anywhere, but we probably could use this as the get ability effect, check if it's target. This will tell us whether or not we're allowed to target something. And this is how we would toggle on different targeting buttons. Huh. This stuff is really good. It's really, really good code. Or at least it's accelerating our ability to prototype quite rapidly. It's just a question now of where this ability is supposed to be applied. So we need to kind of dig through some of this stuff here a little bit. we probably want to go back to when they first got set up inside of the ability range stuff. This is ability range, self ability, infinite range abilities, blah blah blah. We do not care so much about this. Ability targeting states, categories, no. Ability effect, full abilities, default abilities, KO'd abilities. These are all things we'll get to in good time, but that's not the base ability that we're looking for. So the better way to look at this might be to go into projects, or I guess technically this tab, and go into the unit factory, because the unit factory, we didn't look at this before, but did have logic for how he sets up the ability catalog. Instantiate, add stats, add alliance, add attack, which is instantiate a specific prefab, which is this one, okay? Ability catalog. This is a very different way of setting up the abilities, but again, this all assumes that the ability stuff has already been set up. So we're trying to figure out ability menu. Maybe the abilities were set up here. No, this is ability entries. Unfortunate. I'd done a bunch of review of my previous project that I'd done based off of these tutorials. I thought I had enough information to just build this ability factory, but it turns out I missed the base ability class. And now I am struggling to find the information that I need. This is all to do with ability entries, not the actual abilities themselves. That's all menu stuff. It's somewhere in one of these 5 tutorials in which he covers the setup of the abilities, but offhand, I'm not sure where that is. Can we figure it out on our own? Well, it just needs to get component base ability effect, which is the damage ability effect. Transform children count. Transform children. This looks like it just needs to be at the topmost spot. So I'm not sure why in the images that we were looking at for ability effects, it's not added here, but everything I'm seeing says it probably should be at the same level as physical ability. So then if we go back into unit factories, I think in here at this level, I think we just might need to add ability. Because really what this thing is doing... What are you complaining about? Stop complaining. When we call perform, it's just going through its children, and for each child, it gets the component base effect, which will be damage or something on every single child, and then applies it. Child count, get children, ability effect targeting, return true if any of them are true. I think this logic might need to be evolved a little bit further, but yeah, this seems right. Okay. Okay. So all that being equal in the world, this should be what we need to add abilities. if I've read all this correctly, we will create an object, we will add the component ability and physical ability power to it. We don't need ranger effect. We will create a damage effect, which will be our default one. We'll eventually want to be building these based off of our design data, but for now we'll create one damage effect for everything. It will have an A type of hit, which we may not even, I don't know, we'll see if we end up using. I have a feeling I removed on hit. And because these are my custom scripts that I took from my other project, that's why it's not here. I didn't take it directly from these original ones. Damage. Yeah. Unless I'm missing something else, but I don't think I am. Oh, I am missing something else. This thing calls apply, which is on the base effect, which does the perform roll for hit in here. This is not apply, this is on apply, which is a abstract function that the damage function then calls on, which gives us out a damage value. Okay. So we will roll for hit right now. So that A-type stuff needs to be set up, and it is. Okay, cool. So we set up the A-type, we set up the ability effect type, which basically just says we have to target something that's alive, and then a damage ability effect. So we should be able to hit play and see those objects be generated. And then we should be able to very quickly here try applying an ability. So underneath character, there now is data. Character has, or knight has attack and defend, both of which have damage and are set up. Okay. So the next thing would be that we would need to find a way to grab that ability. We are at the 2-hour mark. I generally don't like going too long on these series because I feel like I do burn out. I feel like I've maybe burnt out a while ago, but for the sake of just quickly testing this, rather than building some sort of structure that will hold all the abilities properly inside of these units, I think probably next stream we might need to refactor a bunch of the unit logic. But right now, I think I want to try doing resolve effect. Get character model current ability sequence dot ability ID. No, character attacker dot get prefab dot get components in children ability. This is a super inefficient way to do this. What does this return? This returns a list, I assume? Oh, Unity. It won't, and for whatever reason, won't IntelliSense this for me. Yeah, it's just a straight up array. Okay, it's not even a list. Okay. Abilities for each ability, ability, in abilities, if ability dot name equals, oh man, design data, ability name, blah blah blah. If the name of this game object matches the name of this ability, this is really bad, then that means it's the same ability for our purposes. Yeah, we'll eventually want to write something that actually holds this data more properly. Yeah, that's how we did this. Okay. More properly. And so then once we found that ability, we want to do dot perform. Oh, right, with a list of tiles. So we have to refactor all of this stuff as well. How many spots do we use the word tile? A couple. What if we did a hard replace the word tile with the word unit everywhere in the project? Yes. That was way more spots. Okay, what about if we said current project replace all? 23 occurrences. This seems somewhat more accurate. Let's undo that again. Let's do replace, replace, replace. Match case. This is risky. Replace all is just, it's... Oh god, what have I done? It's not undoing. It undoes if you do replace all, but not this. Okay, well, I've just completely messed everything up. Okay, I can back through this way. Okay, well, should have took this a little bit slower. The right way to do this would have been to click on each of these spots and replace it with unit. It is doable, but only if you do replace all. If you replace one by one, it does not seem to want to go back. Okay, let's take our lumps. Let's see if we can fix it. Oh, it might not like that, actually. This is just a lot of refactoring code. Okay, okay. That's fixed, that's fixed. Unit, unit. Okay, K. Everything is good, everything is great. We are just setting up all of these variables. Okay, Unity, complain at me. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me the errors that I created. There's a problem with unit? Unit has been defined twice? Great. Oh, that's because one of the files is going to be replaced with the tile file will now have been replaced with Unity. So we need to go into gameplay and delete this entire folder structure. Gone from existence it is. Okay, now what else did I mess up? Okay, for this, we'll go into source tree, because this is why source tree exists. Well, that's super unfortunate. These files aren't in source tree because these are assets and I did not modify. I did not add anything that was from asset bundles to my source tree because I thought eventually I might want to release this. So I'm just going to have to manually fix any of the spots that I accidentally replaced unit with tile by hand. It looks like that might have been the only other spot. Yeah. Yeah, it should have been whole word only, and it should have been cap sensitive when we did this. These are files that we're not even using right now. Alright, now we're into this stuff. Okay, so now tile no longer has the concept of content. Instead, it is just unit, and we will rename these from tile to unit in the future. So this is just target.get component. In fact, we can just do target.defender. It is nice that a lot of these things do just end up referencing unit internally anyways, so we'd mostly just need to fix up that reference so that instead of trying to get unit, we just say, hey, this is the unit. Okay, we're targeting the unit. We're targeting the unit. Replace unit with tile. Current document, replace. Fixed. Now what? Really? Whole word, no. Okay, Find next. Replace. Replace, 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 replace. Man, I tried to be like lazy and all it did was end up backfiring super hard. Find next, find next, find next. Replace. Okay. Fix the comment too. Defender is target. The true beauty of programming. Why are you still complaining? That was supposed to be tiles, not tile. Okay, now you're complaining because we're actually getting to the point where this thing should be passing in a list of targets, which should be a list of units. Units. Monsters in, no, equals new list of units. Good, good, good. All right, now we say as we loop through for them each to take damage, we can also dot add each of these prefabs dot get unit, get component unit. Yeah, I'm starting to really fade at this point. We're so close to maybe possibly performing an action. So we pass in a list of monsters. That will be our targets. Okay. Okay. Did we do it? The question is now upon us. Have we reached a point? I don't know. I have no idea if that did anything. Let's put a breakpoint in. The other way that we could quickly just check and see is, does Ghost's health is min health is 0? That doesn't really help us. Can I see current health? Did the whole game freeze? No, okay, there we go. Debug. Looks like we have one stat set to 50. What are the stat types? Stat types in order is experience. Okay, HP is 0. All our stats are 0. Okay, that might be a problem. That's going to be because when we set up the units, we don't do anything with their stats. Unit factory, add stats, set values. Oh, right. So, all right. There's another piece that we're missing. Jobs. So I didn't want to set up jobs. But we do need some logic in here for when we employ a job, we need to apply the stats. Base stats. So I don't want to necessarily go the job route right now. I don't want to hook up all of these pieces. Right. Okay. So we need load default stats. Uh-huh. Okay. So for the time being, we just need to assume that when we add the stats, we need to set some default ones. Oh god. Things have gotten out of control. There we go. Let's do that here by just setting some of these values by hand. Alright, so we need to set max HP. We'll set that to 100 right now. That seems pretty straightforward. Max MP we'll set to 50. Okay, what are the other stats that might be important? Attack we'll set as 10. Everything else, I think 10 might be fine. I don't know what the real values of these should be. Defense, 10. Magic defense, 10. What are... Evasion, probably one that we need to base set up. And speed. We probably won't use any of the other ones right now. Evasion. I'm just trying to think of anything that the system might use. Evasion is 0. We don't want people being better at evading right now because we want to see damage being done. And if it's that they evaded and that's why we're not seeing anything happen, then that would be really weird. I'll set this to 10 as well. Okay, so now everyone should have some default stats, which should make it easier for us to deal damage, you know, given that they need health in order for them to actually take damage. All right. I believe. I want to walk through it. I want to walk through the logic and see what's actually happening. So we're gonna go into debug mode. We're going to perform an attack. It's upset with me. Gotta wait for it to finish connecting, I guess. Come on. There we go. Okay, cool. Attack. It's gonna hit a bunch of existing breakpoints that we never removed. Okay. Attack, ghost. Okay. Good. Attack is being performed. Perform ability. Okay, we got in. We're performing the ability. We're performing the ability on get child, get effect. Effect is a damage effect. Awesome. Applying that effect. This is a valid target. We rolled a hit. We successfully hit. We apply damage. We get a value of -5, so we're doing 5 damage to him. We're varying that, so it's -6. Clamp the damage between max and whatever. So, alright, good. Stats, getting HP for the enemy. We are plussing this value to their stats, which is currently set to... No? What's that? A watch? S. Stat types dot HB. It's currently 100. We step past here. It is now 94. We return. We post that we've done damage. We post some hit info. Okay. Cool. And I think that is that. So if we go into the ghost, we should be able to look and see. Yeah, so number 2 here is the stat for their current health, and their current health is at 94. I think that all worked. We do a lot of posts, like a lot of event sending that we did perform notification. We go into perform and then to apply. In here, we're also posting hit data. I think this hit data is used to be how I set up like damaging and how enemies would actually apply and get hit and stuff. So I don't know. I actually, this is why I'm very careful about over-engineering stuff, because I don't even necessarily fully understand what we're setting up. I don't think we need to be performing set trigger damage here. I think that maybe we should have it so that we listen for being hit. Yeah, no one's listening for being hit right now, but we might want to listen for being hit and have the characters deal with being hit on their own. Hit or missed. Rather than hard coding it. I think using some of these events would be really advantageous to us. Like hit notification. Miss notification. Like these would be better because then we know whether to play a hit animation, or like if we did have a miss animation, we would be able to use that instead. This is saying that we hit for true. This is the unit that did the hit. This is the enemy that was target. This is the damage that was dealt. Okay. I'm very tempted right now to actually dive right. It's 2.5 hours. I've got to stop, but I'm tempted to dive into like writing some sort of state machine or a singleton that actually like kicks off a damage effect at a specific target location and does like the little float up like of damage based off of one of these events. So it listens for a hit data, takes that damage, sets the text, plays an animation on it. But I think that's probably next time. We actually ended up getting through both the goals I wanted to do over probably the next 2 streams today. So if we check our goals, we did both the setting up of the ability state machine. It's not perfect. It probably needs quite a bit of refactoring. I called out like 3 or 4 things just now, but it works. And we did set up the ability factory. Again, we need to set up more design data. We need to have the ability for our design data in spreadsheet form over here to be able to have whether or not it is a status effect, whether or not it has different types of like ally friendly targeting or enemy targeting. Like there's a whole bunch of extra logic that all needs to be set up for the design data. And then we need to actually go inside of the game and inside of Unit Factory, need to set up all of these different damage effects to be different as well. Like we need different types of effects on each ability based off that design data to be built as like there's a ton of work that I kind of skated by or just ignored during this stream just because I wanted to get to the point where I could perform the ability and deal damage. I feel like next stream I'd like to continue to ignore a couple of these things and probably not refactor them right away, and instead set up damage effect text, which will show the damage applied. I don't think we need particles right this second, but I think the damage effect text is kind of the last piece. If we had that effect text showing up, we wouldn't have to debug or look in here to see that we're dealing damage. Instead, we could just like actually see that numbers are flying off when this guy gets hit. And I think that would be a big difference. Like we did another 6 damage there. That's probably going to be the same for every single attack. It's probably between 4 and 6 right now. That did 6 again. Shoot, I forgot to look. We're at 77, but we're slowly killing this guy with attacks. So that's super neat. So I think getting the damage effect text is still a good last step on this rush through to get this loop working, because it's kind of the final piece to show that something actually happened. We're able to target an enemy, we play an attack animation, they get a hit animation. If we had that effect, we would be like the actual text effect. We'd be like, oh, I did damage to that guy. That would be super cool. Once we get that going, there's so many things. I mean, we could, for debugging purposes, probably set up the enemies to show their health values, even if it was just a health bar above their head, or from our characters if we were updating our health here. So probably visual HP representation, visual HP bars, visualize HP. Then we'd likely like to get increase ability design data. It's not really, so that's not super descriptive for anyone but me, but essentially I want to get more variety abilities, more types of abilities. What I mean by this is that right now we can only perform attacks, but we should be able to also defend and cast white magic to cure ourselves in order to heal. Like getting more types of abilities from our design data is the other big task that I'd like to see. Because then we could do more than just attack. We could attack, defend, heal, perform magic attacks. All of that would be really useful. Unit or import stats from design data. For now, that would be better than at least hard coding it so that we could give different characters different stats. I feel like there's some other things that we missed along the way that I even just mentioned within the last few seconds. So more types of abilities would also include, because it would need curing, also setting up the targeting system to be better. I feel like these were the main ones, though. I feel like these were the main pieces. I mean, that's 4 different things. Some of, like, more ability types is probably a stream all of its own, but I mean, we could probably, if we pushed, get this done in a 2-hour stream, but it would be tight. Maybe if I did some prep work where I actually set up the design data cells, then all we have to do is work on the importing it in. Maybe that's an idea. Let me try and get all of this done next stream. Yeah, I'm sure there's more that I've missed that we skimmed through that we maybe skipped over a little bit. Like setting up more idols for the characters is another thing that we could call out. Refactoring a lot of how we reference characters is also a very important thing that we should do at some point. So when we are doing like resolve effect, where I'm doing this nonsense where I'm like getting monster data by target ID, then grabbing the prefab and saying like all of this like get unit stuff, like I'd love to refactor a lot of this. I think that the combat character manager shouldn't be being referenced in so many different places. It feels really bad to me how much we just hard grab it in different spots to get the information we need, when I don't think we need to. Or even the fact that we had to like loop through and add get component from the prefab to add to the monster list. I feel like maybe our lists of like Maybe we should be referencing unit instead of character model for a lot of this stuff, now that we're moving into like the ability setup that all has the idea of a unit already baked into it. We might want to just look at data. There's some refactoring, some changing of the way that we originally set some stuff up to be a little bit better that needs to be done at some point. I don't think it's the most interesting stream. I mean, it could be something, again, I do off camera and then we just talk about how I changed some stuff, because it's really more thinky than it is like, oh, I'm just going to code some stuff. It's more just like, I need to sit down and think about how I want to set up my data structures and how I want to have things being referenced. I'm rambling at this point, but I think it's important rambles. I think I'm done though. I think that's the gist. That's primarily what we're working on. That's what we were working on in the future. I'm feeling pretty good about the progress. Like this was a good stream in that we got this attack text showing up. They play an animation, we play a hit animation, and behind the scenes they are taking damage. Now we can start getting it so that the enemies, like probably after we get a lot of that stuff I just listed done, we might also want to set up the enemies to also be performing abilities, even if there's not any real AI. If it's just them randomly selecting a character on the other side of the field and performing a basic attack, that would still add a lot to this experience. But we're getting there for sure. For now, I think though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Or sorry, I keep messing this outro up every time the last few streams. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks for chiming in here and there. It's been a ton of fun. For now, this will be Tolhi signing out. Later, guys.